Hey guys, what's up? It's Nick. First off, I want to thank you guys very much for taking time out of your lives to listen to our podcast. You don't know how much it means to me. I really appreciate it. I'm so grateful that you guys would do that. I've been podcasting for a number of years now, and there's some interviews that I've done that I'm really proud of and I'm really excited about, and they don't live on the internet anymore. They've been taken down, but I want to take this time to re-release a few of those. And so this is a couple of those interviews. Now, before we get started, I just want to say you should join the Beer League Players Association. It's a rad crew. We're trying to do great things. We're trying to connect the world using sport. And I think it's really important, especially in a time like this where there's so many polarizing things happening in the world, just to have a group that comes together with a like-minded goal of just being kind to each other and promoting like-minded individuals, playing sport, having fun, and being good human beings. So join the Beer League Players Association. If you like what we're doing, we'd love your support over on Patreon, patreon.com/beerleagueinc. That's Beer League Inc. We do a lot of cool things with our Patreon supporters. We do giveaways. We give away draft experience tournaments. We give away swag. We give away a lot of things. So if you like what we're doing and you want to help, please support us. We'd appreciate that immensely. Also, check out our tournaments at tournamentcompany.com. We have a lot of them coming up. The Hockey Quest, the 20,000-mile, 100-day, 10 tournament Hockey Quest is starting up here in about a month. So hopefully we'll see you at one of those events. But enjoy the interviews. Here we go. All right, guys. Today I have an American hockey player, made his way up through the minor ranks, played college hockey at Harvard, and then went on to play hockey in Europe, pro hockey. And then he had the balls, the audacity to write a book about it. And it's pretty damn funny. We have the author of Odd Man Rush, a Harvard kid's hockey odyssey from Central Park to somewhere in Sweden with stops along the way, Bill Keenan. Bill, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem. Thank you so much for coming on. So I have to ask the question first, why the book? Like, was this something that as soon as you started the European pro hockey life that you said, hey, I'm going to write a book, or was it an afterthought? How did that all come about?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the reason there was a book is because I couldn't find a job. When I came back after I stopped playing, I realized, I'll be honest, I kind of thought I'd just walk into a job and something that would be fun to do, like hockey. And I don't know, I don't really, looking back on it, I don't know why I had that. I was kind of under some, that like just a ludicrous assumption that I would find something like hockey, and nobody really is interested in someone that doesn't have, doesn't know accounting, or I didn't really apply myself, I don't think, in the classroom too much at Harvard. So, I had a lot of time on my hands, and I think there were a lot of emails that I sent home. I basically had two sets of emails. There was one set to my parents and one to my friends. And as you can imagine, they were telling, that basically to my parents, it was, I'm alive, don't worry about me. And to my friends, it was the other stuff. And it really kind of stemmed from that time on my hands, and then trying to figure out how. I mean, really, it was really trying to figure out why I kept playing, despite knowing that I probably wasn't going to make it to the NHL.
Yeah, well, I mean, how do you even approach, you go to a publisher and say, hey, I have this hockey book. I'm just a pro hockey player in Europe. I didn't really go, to the NHL. How do you sell someone on that idea? Was it an easy sell, or were you banging your head against a wall for a while?
Yeah, for about 2 years. It was probably, had I known what it would take to get it published, I mean, I say it now, I say I wouldn't have done it. I probably still would have done it, but I really was, there was something, the ignorance of not knowing the process actually let me feel comfortable doing it, because I had no idea. I kind of figured it'd be this is pretty, I got an interesting story to tell. Everyone's going to love this, but not everybody is my mom or my friends. So, yeah. When I started going, you go to literary agents, and then they kind of sift through the stuff. And then, so even before you get a publisher, you got to find an agent. And that was just, I think it's like this experience for most people, but it's pretty difficult. And I ended up getting just, like anything else, you just keep, it's like you're standing in front of the net, you're just whacking at the puck, and eventually something happens. So there was one Canadian agent who finally got right back to me and said, yeah, I guess I got nothing to lose. I'll give this a shot. And so he basically spent the next 6 months after I signed with him trying to find a publisher. And so it was definitely a grind. But it was something that it was a great way to transfer all the things that I loved about hockey into a new endeavor. Mm-hmm. Kind of looking back on it, there was a lot of, you're rewarded for hard work and a little bit of talent. And if you kind of keep at it long enough, something happens. So it was a nice way to kind of transition out of hockey. I think writing.
Yeah, well, I mean, furthering more on the book, I mean, I told you this via tweet when we were talking about this interview, and I started reading it, and the book's a couple years old. It's not like it just came out, but I came across it maybe because I saw you on Twitter, like I said, I was laying in bed one night reading this book, and I was laughing so hard that my wife kicked me out of bed and said, "You're on the couch tonight." And so I just went to the couch and kept reading. No big deal. But for all the people that are out there, the reason why I find this book probably more entertaining than I met Kelly Rudy. I went to his book signing, read his book, and his book's good. But I think I like it because it's not like the braggadocious, this is all the stuff that I've done in my hockey career. It's really relatable on a beer league level because, the self-deprecation that you put in the book is probably partly for humor and for show, but it really brings out that human aspect of playing hockey, and it even relates to the beer leaguers because, for me, I was a beginner. So, I had to learn all this new stuff about playing the game, just like you kind of had to learn the whole new world of hockey going over to Europe. And so, tell me, once you got out of college and you were like, hey, I got to find something to do. I want to chase the dream. What made you think, hey, I got to go to Europe and play?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you saying that. I'm surprised, given your wife's Canadian, that she would kick you out. Although my guess is she wouldn't have found whatever you thought was funny very funny.
I told her about it, and she didn't. But she did say, "Please leave the bed." So it was a polite Canadian way of kicking me out of the bed. Yeah. But yeah,
I guess to answer your question though, there's first of all, there wasn't. As you know, I didn't. No one's ever heard of me. No, and. I don't think most people can pronounce some of the names of the teams I played on, let alone, there are players that, I don't even know if some of them still exist. And so there was really nothing, looking back on it, I think what I found the absurdity was, how seriously you take it at the time, because that was like my life. Mm-hmm. And then having a little bit of perspective, looking back on it, and kind of, one of the mascots was just a leaf. That was the mascot. And I didn't even realize it until it was the end of the season. Somebody back home was like, well, what's the name of your team? And there were things though. So kind of, that was one of the things that also kind of made me want to write about it. But as far as going to Europe, it was really just kind of out of necessity, because I was not, some coveted star coming out of college by any means. And so it was basically, I never really got, I think most of the guys I played with in college, if you were good enough to have a chance to keep going, then, that was kind of the, 1 or 2 a year were in that boat. And that was not me by any means. Most had kind of already gotten closure, or they'd kind of gotten to where they wanted to go. And because I had some injuries and I never really got to play that much, I never really was fulfilled kind of and got to the point where I could part ways. And mm-hmm. I think getting hurt actually made me want to, I wanted to end kind of on my own terms. And it was basically, you go to Europe or you go start playing in the beer leagues. And I wasn't quite ready for that. So it was really it wasn't like I had my eyes set on somewhere. It was, I was looking at, all right, where can I just get paid something, just to kind of keep this afloat and play at a competitive level. And that was really, Europe is really the best option, because there's a lot of leagues and they're always looking for Americans.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about the injuries later because I am interested. Like you had the back injury at Harvard, and you had a leg injury in Europe when you first started out. But like when you start talking about going over, like how do you even get the gig? Like I know in the book you talked about emailing a bunch of people, but like I'm an American and I had to come up to Canada to work because my wife forced me up here, and I had to go through this. Just a bunch of paperwork and headaches just to kind of get legal to work. Like, how does that work? For maybe there's someone listening that, hey, I'm going to go to Europe and play. Like, how does the visa work permit process work? How do you even get a gig in Europe?
Yeah, well, I mean, I wish I knew. These are really good questions, and I wish I would have thought about them before I went on this kind of endeavor here to try to play. I think the first thing, if I were someone starting or even considering it, is if you have any links to relatives or family members that can, if you can have dual citizenship, that makes it really, really much easier. Just because like the fees, I'm going to botch like what they're called, but there's all sorts of like import and transfer fees and all sorts of stuff that it does cost. I mean, these European teams, they invest a lot in import. And when I say import, like the North American players. Mm-hmm. So if they want to bring someone over, they have to pay a lot. And so that's why it's not just quite as simple as just flying over and for a tryout. You have to kind of they have to make sure that you're worth it, that you're worth kind of the whole headache, because it is. Yeah. I mean, it a lot depends on how long you're there for. So sometimes you'll get a guy that'll sign for a short enough period of time that you can do like I don't know what, but the terminology is, but like the visa is not quite as extensive if you're there for like half a season. So the first team I went to, I wasn't there that long. I had to come back home. And then the second one, it was short enough. The second, I was only there for like half a season in Germany. So it was short enough that they didn't have to go through like the whole, I forget what it's called, but like, you get all sorts of stamps in your passport and the picture, because that ended up happening in Sweden. And honestly, I just remember the 2 years I was in Sweden, you'd basically spend a day at the immigration office, get like mug shots taken, like you're about to go to jail. And then, somebody just like okays you. I do know that they also, I think it was the first team I played on, Sweden. I had to sit out, I think, the first 3 or 4 games because the paperwork hadn't been finished. So, yeah, I was never really all that, up to date as to how it worked. But they, someone took care of it. Not particularly well because I missed a few games. But well, yeah.
Well, so I guess that's probably a big stressor for going over to Europe. But I mean, really, how stressful was playing there? I'm sure there was a big language and cultural barrier. I mean, from the book, it seems like the imports are pretty much playing on perpetual tryouts. I mean, you got hurt, they sent you packing, and what was that, your first team or something? So, I mean, how does that play into the whole experience? Like, are you literally on the edge of your seat every day thinking, shit, this could be it?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I think pretty much. I mean, I think you said that's exactly how you said it. It is, no matter what the contract says, like you can be gone. Like you have a couple bad games in a row. And the thing is, once you're over in Europe, so like it's tough. I guess the biggest hurdle is finding that first team to give you a shot. Once you're there, I think it's a lot easier to move around. So like once you get that first team, you need like an agent or somebody kind of looking out for you, but you're basically a train ride away. So in the back of your head, you're thinking, all right, if I completely fuck this up, or, there's probably an opportunity in a team, either in this league or in, another country nearby. But it's like, it goes one of two ways. Either you're like and it can basically, you can go through this in the same season. You can be like the star of the town. Like, you're going to get your groceries, and the person at the cash register is like, no, your money's no good here. You scored a hat trick last night, and then like 2 games later, you're like a -3 and you haven't had points in like back-to-back games, and then you're like a pariah and you're
no one wants
and
to
you're
even
done.
talk
So
to
like
you.
it's never, yeah, it's really like my experience was either like everything is like awesome or just like the end of the world, and then you're definitely scared of getting a call that here you have a ticket.
Yeah, or they take your
Like,
pants off. Wasn't that in the
exactly.
thing?
Yeah, that's kind of like the visual when you get in the locker room, because I don't know how I never played in the U.S. at that level, but in Europe it was because these teams are so. I mean, most of them are so reliant on one or two companies that sponsor them that all the equipment is aside from your skates and really skates, maybe like your shin guards and elbow pads, most of it you get from the team you're playing on. So the second that you get to your stall one day and there's equipment missing, that means you're gone. Like it's usually your pants, because they're not your pants. So they take it out just so you don't steal it,
Well,
most guys, second they know that they're going to be cut, they're going to start trying to take as much shit from the locker room.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I remember the last at the end. That your buddy there, he's got like brand new sticks in the back that he ripped off after the season was over. So, I mean, is that's pretty much commonplace, and it just seems weird that they would take your pants but then let people steal a bunch of sticks at the end of the.
Well, I mean, the stealing of the sticks isn't something that they're crazy about either. I think that was that guy he had done a little bit. He was a veteran. He had found a key to the equipment room. But I will tell you, I don't think I've met anybody that's played over there that hasn't figured out a way to, whether it's right before the end of the season or over the course of the season, find a way into the equipment room when the equipment manager isn't around and start swiping stuff, because that's kind of how you got to get through the summer. And I got to be honest, I probably I haven't played since I stopped in like 2012. I haven't been playing all that much, but I have sticks that are still from the last team that I played on.
Oh man, those are gonna be collector's editions pretty soon.
They are. Yeah, I look like the guy with like the leather skates and like the Jofa helmet. The equivalent. So,
well, I mean, you talked about sometimes going to the store, they tell you that your money was no good, and like, how do contracts? How does the pay work? I know there's a bunch of different leagues that you make reference in the book about. You get to one of the higher levels and you got biweekly paychecks. So, it sounds like you were probably getting paid monthly, and like in your contract, where they provide housing and a car for you guys to share, and then, I mean, how is the pay? Is it enough to live over there?
Yeah. I mean, it's really like it's the Wild West. I mean, there would be, you'd have games sometime and you'd get back to, you had a good game and guys are like immediately go to their pants that are hanging, like their actual street pants, because one of the owners would just put in, a wad of cash if they had done well. So that's how you kind of knew what they thought of you. But it's really, I mean, I don't think there's any, at least in the leagues I was playing in, it's really kind of, most of them, they give you the housing. They give you, I mean, the last year I played, you get paid monthly. We had housing. We lived at a hotel, all the imports. You got all your meals were paid for at the hotel. I mean, this place, I don't think I even saw, like, there was one weekend where something was happening here that there were other people in this hotel, and the rest of it was just like, it was like 4 stories of a hotel, and there were like 4 guys and the coach living there. So it was an odd place. You make enough to live on over there. It would be difficult to, live in the U.S. on these salaries, but I think it's the point is that they make it so, you're able to stay afloat during the year. And then most guys have jobs over the summer, and a lot of people will have jobs even during the season, kind of supplemental income. Like when I was in Sweden, a lot of guys were carpenters or they'd work at like a factory for a few hours a day. So yeah, it was, you're not living the high life, but at the same time, it's still kind of, you get to do what you love to do, and it's not gonna. I mean, the other thing I knew was not gonna last forever, so I kind of figured it might as well just
Just ride it out.
Just ride it out for a couple of years. Exactly.
Well, I mean, let's talk about kind of the language and cultural barrier. You talk in the book about, you kind of learned a little bit of Sweden, but I mean, any kind of horror stories? I just went over and played hockey in Salzburg, Austria, and we took a train from Munich and back. And the funny story that I have from there is my buddies were on a train, but we don't know German. We don't know what's going on. And about halfway to the airport, half of the train splits off and goes another way, and the other half goes to the airport. Well, my buddies were in the half that did not go to the airport, and so they're just completely freaking lost. So, I mean, do you have any stories like where the cultural differences or the language just kind of, made something happen that was just hilarious, or?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the language thing. The thing is, there's enough, at least the places. So I was really, for the most part, in Sweden, and then a little bit in Germany and a little bit in Belgium. And, a lot of people in Sweden, like everyone, I mean, they'd be dying. Like it was almost impossible to even try to learn the language because everyone wanted to speak English so badly. But so honestly, it wasn't. And usually the coach, most of these teams, the coach is from that country. So they'll do most of the drills. I mean, most everything is actually done in English, and then when they get really pissed off, they go back to their native language. So at that point you're tuned out anyway, so you don't even really care what's going on So it's kind of nice, at least on the ice, because when you have a coach kind of like yelling at you, and then he doesn't know how to do it, real angry in English, so he just goes to his native language. And then, he thinks he's getting his point across. You're just sitting there like, the guy might as well not. You don't even know if he's yelling at you. Like it doesn't really matter, because most of the time it's not even, it's not even relevant. But I think more cultural, like, I just remember like coming out of games in Belgium, and like you'd have, I have a little sister, and at the time she was like 10, and I remember looking at these kids. Then they'd come up and like, ask for autographs, and like. All of them are like smoking. They're like, 11 years old and like smoking cigarettes. Yeah. And the only one, I mean, the one that I remember the most was that, like, after the first game, and there was a kid who came up and had like a hat and, gave me the pen to sign the brim of his hat. And so I'm thinking, that's just pretty, like, I kind of made it. And as he walks away, he's speaking Flemish to his friends, and then I kind of pick up that he thought I was different. He basically, he never figured it out. I don't think so. It doesn't matter.
Well, in the book you talk about, your favorite player growing up there and kind of your hero. And you went to his hockey camp and you got to play on the line with him. I think you even potted a goal off an assist from him. Yep. And, you think about that, and then you're over there signing autographs, and you're like, oh, I think I made it. Does that ever like kind of flip around where you're like, you know what, like I don't know. I've just kind of been like, when do pros realize that, hey, like we have this effect and this kind of allure to kids? They look up to us, and we have to do something to kind of, be cool or make them kind of realize their dreams. Like, did you ever have like that kind of feeling, like you're signing autographs, or are you thinking like, wow, like I'm a professional and I have kids looking up to me?
Yeah, I mean, definitely not to the extent who you're talking about, Adam Graves, who was my hero. And I went to his camp in Ontario, and, he was the assistant captain of the Rangers when they won the Stanley Cup. So he was like on another level. And, but, in the context of some of these smaller places, you get that. Yeah. I mean, in a much smaller sense, but to these kids, if you're like the big show in town, there's not much going on. So in some of these places, it's kind of nice, because that means like hockey games were the main event. I think I guess I experienced that a little bit, but I don't think, I think they had a pretty good understanding that, the real, the NHL, they could watch those things on TV. And so I think it was much more, I feel like we did, at least the teams I played on did a good job of getting us involved in the community. So we would do stuff like, like after our games, you get to hang out with the kids that are on like the minor teams, because most of these teams have, like in Europe, you have youth teams that are affiliated with the kind of the most senior teams. So, we'd like sometimes go to their practices and help out. But honestly, it was never. I don't think it was anything. It's not anything close to kind of the way that a kid would look at an NHL star. At least that wasn't really my experience.
Okay. I just, as a professional podcaster myself, I got invited to be the officiant of someone's wedding that listens to the show. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
I couldn't do it, but I mean, it's still pretty cool. I got ordained and everything, but yeah. So I mean, I want to jump back to kind of the injuries. We're kind of jumping around a bit here, but you had the back injury at Harvard, and I told you kind of the reason why I want to talk about that is because when I first started playing hockey, I also had a back injury where I had to go in and have surgery to be able to play hockey again, and then you had the leg injury in Europe. How hard is it to kind of keep chasing the dream through that? Because I mean, the back injury, those back injuries suck. Like you just never know like when you're going to get better, if it's going to be better. If I move the wrong way, is my back going to blow out again? So how do you keep chasing the dream through that kind of stuff?
Yeah, no, that is definitely the worst thing of the back, because it's not like 4 weeks and it's healed, like, or like a broken bone where there's a pretty specific way of dealing with it. But, honestly, I think if anything, it's just a good way to test how much you want to do something, because I feel like in pretty much every team I played on, once you get to, maybe 15 or something like that, everyone will go through, not every season, but to some extent you'll get hurt. Like that's just kind of how hockey is.
Yeah.
But it does start to make you question, and it makes you figure out how much you want to do it. And so, if anything, getting hurt made me, and it was to a degree where it's like it became, it wasn't just, it was like full seasons. So you start seeing, I think I got to see something that most people don't, which is what is it like to have something like straight up taken from you when you feel like you're kind of in your prime. So like at 19 to not be able to play for 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. And you can't skate, and you're like surrounded by your friends, all of whom are doing what you want to do. If anything, it kind of increases your drive, because you don't really know it at the time. I mean, you love doing it, but until you can't, that all that cliche, like until it's taken from you, you really don't know. Like that, yeah. All of a sudden you realize, holy shit, this is what makes me tick. So it was kind of a wake up call. Like I got to figure out, how to get back on skates. And it's unfortunately it's not with the back something you can just like push through. It takes, you got to be patient, and you really just don't know sometimes, like if you're ever going to be fully okay. And that's kind of that's the one thing it does make it a little bit scarier. But I was, after a couple surgeries, got to the point where I could then start skating again, and then get back to like getting hit, and then slowly make my way back into actually playing. So if anything, I think it actually helped. Getting hurt kind of reignited the drive.
Well, when you got your leg injury in Europe, and you were on like a tryout, and it was kind of in like their preseason games, and they cut you. How does I mean, is there any health care? Are you on your own? Is the team assisting you in recovering from that, or?
Yeah, so I mean, if you have a contract, the other times I got hurt in Europe were much minor, kind of like an MCL sprain or something where you have to miss a little bit of time. But my experience was actually very, in Sweden they were really top notch about the rehab and getting you access to all the resources you needed. That the first one that you're referencing was because it was on a tryout. I was pretty much on my own. So it was really like, and that was just like a hamstring thing, but they knew that it was bad enough that it would going to keep me out for like it was like 2 months or something. And so it was kind of like, sorry, just get out of here, because they want to get somebody that can play at the beginning of the season, and in their defense, I hadn't signed anything, so they weren't obligated to do anything. It's a tryout. It was 30 days, and that's 2 weeks into it that happened, and they're not trying to pay for someone and help someone that's not going to contribute.
Yeah, for sure.
Away, so.
For sure. So what was your favorite on ice moment in all of your European hockey? Do you have like a crazy goal story, or?
It's funny because I think like my most favorite, at least the things that I remember the most, were definitely off the ice. But probably I think the first goal I scored when I went to Sweden, because it was my second season, and it was, to me, it was the highest level I had played at, and the team we played was a really strong. Like it was, I guess the reason I remember it was because I remember thinking going into this game, and that this was like, I was like, geez, I don't know if I'm going to be able to contribute. Like I think they have more confidence in me than I had, and then I was able to, they gave me an opportunity, and we ended up losing like 10-1 that game, but I did have the first goal, and it was. And the other team was just really good, but it was like a big confidence booster, at least like personally for me, because I think it was the first time in a long time I had I thought a high level, and I had a lot of people that were that had confidence in me to perform and execute on the ice, and so like given that opportunity was. That was probably one of the highlights of the entire time.
Like, what was it, like breakaway, top shelf, bar down? I mean, that's how we can remember it.
It was, yeah, let's just go with that, bar down. And I think Lundqvist was in the net, too.
Oh, yeah, this must have been a lockout year.
Yeah.
All right, well, then, I mean, you just mentioned it. Like, I was going to ask you, why do you love hockey and what makes it different? And you mentioned it already, kind of most of the best stories are off the ice. And, I think that's probably what my draw to hockey is just, the off-ice stuff and hanging with the boys in the locker room. So you have any crazy locker room stories?
Yeah, I mean... I think honestly, I was even thinking there's, I think in most locker rooms, there's really not even that. It's kind of like the same, like the language can change, but like there's always, to me, it was just like being in an environment where you could have, I mean, what I liked is that you can go to like, a team that's like, a couple miles from the Arctic Circle, or you could be in Bavaria, or, God knows where. And you're pretty much getting the same group of guys. They'll like maybe speak a different language, have come from different places, whatever. But it's really kind of like that comfort level that you can always feel confident that you're going to have a place and you're going to be part of something. And like, when you talk to people that don't really understand it, they think, oh, like you go to this place must have sucked. Like there's nothing to do. It's cold. But it's like you immediately have like 19 or 20 best friends right off the bat. So it's really, yeah. The
story that made me laugh, right? I mean, whenever I got kicked out of bed was you're going to the locker room and guys are over in the corner tucking their dongs, talking about how pretty their manginas were. Yeah. And I'm telling my boys here that I work with, we're all hockey guys, right? And they're like, oh yeah. And I think that's what's great about it is a testament to what you're saying, is that you can say, oh yeah, we got a couple of those guys on our team. Ted and Don, like they're doing that shit every week in our locker room. Right. And so I think that's what I like about hockey, is exactly what you're saying. Like it's different levels, different languages, different countries, but really all the same if you think about it.
It is all the same, yeah. And that was kind of like the most, you kind of take it for granted, because then once you stop, you realize, like when I got a real job, I say real job, I mean that to me was as real job as you can get. But when I got kind of like a desk job, and it just the sense of humor never really it didn't really translate, I think. So that was it's only kind of in retrospect that you realize how important that sort of stuff is, to, at least to me, it was kind of my day to day, because then when it's not there, you kind of feel like there's kind of a big gap that you can't fill. So yeah, the mangina is obviously kind of a staple.
Well,
I mean, there's just things like I guess, we had like and it's always like, some veteran who is, I mean, I'm just thinking in Sweden, there was a guy, he looked like he should have been driving the Zamboni, and he's like the most skilled guy on our team. And, he would, during the preseason, we'd go for these like long runs through like the Swedish wilderness, and, he'd be at the back, kind of like, he's probably 30 pounds overweight, but he had like, he could basically stand still and just fake people out based on his, his hands and the way he moved his head. And he would just sit there and like pick berries in the forest and not run. And then kind of just like, and he'd still be like out of breath at the end. And, there's just people like that kind of figure out, they're just fun to be around.
Yeah, I think that's, we talk about playing high. Like I'm horrible at hockey. I started playing when I was 30 from Oklahoma, for crying out loud. But like I don't feel any different when I'm in the locker room. Like you're just one of the guys, right? Like, so yeah. I mean it's funny to hear that's kind of how it is, through all different pro levels. I mean, when people ask me about it, I tell them about the story, like Jerome McGinley. Like I'm in Calgary, so I'm a Flames fan. Jerome McGinley retires, and they're doing a speech, and Craig Conroy's just up there at his Hall of Fame speech, just chirping him, right? And I'm like, well, that's pretty much what hockey is about. And yeah, I'm actually blessed. Like I never got to play pro hockey, of course, but I work in a locker room every day, really. I mean, we're a bunch of dudes that play hockey, and we do hockey for a living. So you're right. I kind of take it for granted too. So when I hear you say it, I can say, you know what, my job's not so bad, because
no. Yeah. It's pretty nice to be around that. Yeah. Because it's not like that. I think it's hard to find, yeah, I mean, you can kind of find it in doses. You might find like one or two people like that, but I think something about that many guys that every day after day you get to see, and you're all kind of on the same page, and that's what to me was looking back on it, one of the most important things. Yeah, for sure. So, well, do you beer league now? I was thinking about how to answer that. I got to be honest. I don't even know where my equipment is, and I think when I stopped and I knew that I was going to try to, leave hockey sort of behind, which you can never really do. I was under some, I kind of figured, okay, I'll just like get out of this. You do it for like 25 years, and for some reason I kind of figured, oh, this would be an easy thing to stop. And you realize it's not. Like most things, it's like a relationship. After that long, it's not kind of cold turkey. You kind of got to get over some of the hurdles. But the time it hit me was when I was probably a year after I had stopped, finished playing in Europe, and I was in a game, it's like 11:30 p.m. and I got to get up at 7, but I'm still like, all right, I want to keep playing. And I was skating, and this guy catches me from behind, and I'm thinking, holy shit, like there's no way this guy should have caught me. And so then I start like, getting all pissy, and, I take a penalty. And it didn't occur to me until after the game that like, I just wasn't that good. Like I wasn't fast. Like I hadn't been working out. I was like not in good shape. And to me, that was where I was like, okay, I got to look at this differently. If I'm going to keep playing for fun, I got to remember that I'm not going to be that good, because I'm not trying. Like I haven't been putting in the right proper, time and commitment to like staying in shape. So that's kind of, and I had a hard time dealing with it. So it was kind of like, maybe I should just do something else. I totally get. I mean, I played ball through college, played baseball, and like now it's like you remember how you were,
right?
Yeah,
like you remember,
exactly.
I used to be good on some level, and so then I go out now, and I'm just like, it's just nothing's there anymore. Like I throw the ball back to throw it, and it's just like nothing's there. It doesn't feel the same, and so I totally get where you're coming from. So, but I mean, is it something that maybe in the future you're like, well, I'll get out and play a couple pickup, some shinny games?
You know what? Absolutely, and part of the biggest reason too is I'm in New York City now, and then there's basically one place. And if it weren't so hard to get to the rink that's here, I would. And, it's not.
That's Piers, right? Chelsea Piers?
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. And they do a good job. Like, there's tons of leagues, and there's still a lot of my friends that play there. But to me, the consideration is like, okay, it would be fun to go play, but then I have to, like, haul ass with my equipment across town at rush hour and then, come back. And by that time, and if I could just, like, be in the locker room before the game, not play, and then just be in there after, and somehow get the figure out a way to get the high from exercising. That would be perfect. But yeah, I absolutely no. I want to get back on my skates, and now that like hockey the season started again, I'm watching the Rangers are probably. Yeah, I think they play tonight, so I'll probably watch that. So I still you never, the game's never far away.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're trying to I actually visited Chelsea Piers. We're trying to put one of our tournaments there, and those guys are playing at like 1:30 and 2 in the morning, Bill. Like, it's because
there's a lot.
Crazy. Yeah,
New York has a ton, and it's grown. Like when I grew up here, and there was nothing. Like there was like a figure skating rink on like 34th Street on the second floor, and then there was the Lasker rink in Central Park. But other than that, now it's, fast forward 20 years, and there's a ton. There's a lot of good coaches. One of my most favorite youth coaches, a guy from Halifax, Nova Scotia, now like runs the Chelsea Piers youth program. I mean, there's a lot of good players, but the problem is they're just not. So now you get more players, there's tons of guys and girls that work in the city that play in like the adult leagues, but it's just there's not enough rinks. So yeah, you get the crazy times. And
they were talking about doing like the Armory there. They were going to like put like 8 sheets of ice in it, and then it fell through. And like I got a buddy that runs called Premier Hockey Leagues on Long Island, and he's doing well, and he's just like, it's crazy. And just the cost really, I mean, when I was talking to a guy at Chelsea Piers, like he's saying, we can charge, $1,000 to $1,400 an hour for ice, and people pay it. And I'm just like, holy shit, man. Like that's just, it's just asinine, but I mean, it is what it is. So, but if we ever get a tournament up there, Bill, I'm inviting you out to come play with us.
I'll definitely commit to like assistant coach.
Well, how about just drinking beer?
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah.
So, okay, well, just two more questions before I let you go. I know I've had you for 40 minutes or so, but the first one is, how much credit do you take for Evgeny Malkin's success in the NHL?
100%. I think everybody knows that. Like he'd be nowhere without me.
So just so no one knows, if you gotta go read the book, but he talks about how it was out in Los Angeles, like on an off season, they're just doing like a little skate, and some guy asked you to help him and feed him some passes for some 1-tees, and there's old Bill lining him up for Malkin.
Yeah. Like he was like, I saw this guy, he has the best hands. And I was like, look, I can, I'll do it for you just this once, but I can't, I got other stuff to do. So I think under my tutelage, he was able to work on his game a little bit that summer. And then, he's done okay for himself.
Do you think he would remember this? Like if I ever am in a position to interview Evgeny Malkin and I say, hey, Bill, like he's the one that, got your 1-tee to where it is he going to be like, yeah, I remember him. That's true.
The 50-50, I'll be honest. The only thing that makes me think there's a sliver of hope that he would is because it was right before he actually started playing the NHL. And, I don't know how much English, I don't think it was all that much that he spoke, but it was, I'd assume just from his perspective, it was right after he like defected. I forget exactly what happened, but he was like maybe in Finland or he was somewhere with his Russian team, and he like bolted to the U.S. So the one thing that makes me think there's a possibility he definitely would remember that summer, because it's, you know, for him it's probably the first time he's been in, you know, the U.S. So I think, you know, does he remember that guy who was taking shots to the face? Probably not, though. So I guess not. But
maybe in his Hall of Fame induction, he'll bust it out and be like, "This is the guy," and you can say, "Yeah, you can write another book."
Exactly.
So, okay, I lied. I have actually more than just one more question, but the next one is there going to be another book? Is writing something you want to do, or is that kind of behind you?
No, I got another book, and I got working on a movie based on the book.
Oh, so nice.
So I'm making some headway on that, and then I got another book I'm working on about life in it was my first job post hockey, which was in investment banking. So it's kind of it's a similar sort of look at investment banking, it's the same guy. It's the only one I know, which is me. I tried to do it from another perspective. It's just too hard. So I just keep going back to my perspective. But yeah, so I think writing is definitely something I enjoy doing, and will continue to do. So
is it like the movie is the movie based on the hockey book?
Yeah. The movie is based. It's you know, it's a much shorter, and you got to finesse some things, but it is based off of the hockey book.
Yeah, well, listen, hey, if there's any scenes that like that are announcers and you need a hockey podcaster that's, you know, comfortable on a mic, like I'm down to be in that movie.
Yeah, I think we can. I think we can maybe work that in.
Well, good. Well, at least that means I'll have to invite you back on the show again to talk about it when the movie's on. But last question to wrap this whole thing up. 2-part question. 1, was it worth it? And 2, any advice on players taking that route?
100%. I mean, now if I would say, assuming this is something you absolutely have to do, I would, even if it's, I mean, I loved Europe. I don't think it has to be. It could be anywhere. Like it just to continue to pursue it, kind of to the point of like. I feel like it's okay if you have people thinking like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what is wrong with you? That's okay. Like, that just means I think you're taking it to a level. I think anybody that's ever had success probably has had people that are thinking like something's wrong with this person. That's usually kind of just the way it goes, because most, you're going to find if it's what you want to do, like you're going to, to me, it without the European experience, I probably wouldn't have gotten into writing. And honestly, that was probably one of the, I get as much pleasure out of writing now as I did, I think, when I was playing hockey. So without that, I wouldn't have gotten to find the new passion. And as far as advice, I mean, I would say don't get hurt. That probably would have made it maybe a little bit more fun, but at the same time, look, you never know what's going to happen. So it's pretty much, I guess the advice would be, the exact same thing I just said, which is if you really want to do it, just keep, just figure out a way to make something happen. If it means just emailing everybody that, under the sun to try to give you an opportunity, I did that. It's just staying on top of it, and it's really like but if it's not what you want to do, then it's probably not, then it's probably not worth your time, and you're probably not going to spend the time doing it. So I think just figure out what it is, and then just kind of just go at it with all your resources.
For sure. Well, Bill, we covered a lot today.
Yeah,
it's been about an hour. Injuries and hockey and contracts and
therapy and everything.
For sure, I mean, we went through everything, and you know what? We could sit here and talk for 2 more hours and probably still not get through it. But that just means next time we'll have to talk about puck bunnies and all that good stuff. That kind of stuff happens. But Bill, really thanks for taking the time. And is it okay if I give your Twitter handle? People can follow you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I appreciate it. A blast. Thank you.
So it's at Bill Keenan 86. It's Bill Keenan, the number 8, the number 6. Follow him on Twitter. That's where I found him. Yeah, and Bill, I mean, just thank you very much for coming on the show and talking about it. But really, thank you for writing this book and kind of being a way for us beer leaguers to kind of get a little glimpse inside the pro game and also relate to something out there. So thank you very much for that.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Well, guys, you listened to the interview. If you liked it, even if you didn't like the interview, whatever, you still need to go check out the book because it's hilarious. If you're a hockey player, I promise you'll love it. It's Odd Man Rush, a Harvard kid's hockey odyssey from Central Park to somewhere in Sweden with stops along the way. You heard it here first. They're trying to develop into a movie, and I'm probably going to have a huge role in that one, so you should probably just check it out. But Bill, thank you very much, buddy.
Thank you.